You still have this. If everything works the way it should, this can sit there forever and burn forever, and it won't be a problem. Now, could something go wrong? You bet. Yeah, it already has. There was an earthquake that was 7 times the power that it was supposed to have. So it could go wrong. But let's look at this now again with perspective. Let's say everything melts down. Everything goes wrong. What happens? Well, you've got most of the people out already. They've got everybody out within the 12-mile radius. That's what they say. So here's the meltdown. Let's just say worst case scenario, 12 miles, because it cannot explode. Remember, it can't turn into a nuclear bomb. It will kill 210,000 people. That's if there were still 210,000 people here. 210,000 people. A nightmarish tragedy, right? But that's if, assuming all of the people are there, and all of the containment doesn't work. There is something else cooking around the world. And there is no more containment left. It's called the bond market. If the United States dollar collapses, which I'll show you at the bottom of the hour, you're starting to have the meltdown. If that collapses, how many people will die of starvation? How many people, because we have no more money left, how many people will die because the U.S. military won't be able to go in and save them? Won't be able to go in and protect them? Ask what happens when the U.S. military can't show up or doesn't show up. Ask the people in Libya what happens. If the bond market melts down, do we have more or less than 210,000 deaths globally? So why would the media focus on the Japanese nuclear meltdown and try to tell you that you should prepare in California because of an earthquake? If you're living in California and you don't know you could be hit with an earthquake, a tsunami, and a nuclear power plant sliding into the ocean, you're too dumb to live anyway. They ramp up the possibility of all of this, when reality is, with each passing minute, it becomes less likely. I contend they do it because of an agenda. Naturally, I'm skeptical when I see experts spinning like this is going to be a horrific tragedy like the one at 3 Mile Island. How many people died at 3 Mile Island? Anybody on the floor even want to take a guess? Anybody know? Thank you. Jack. 0. Not one. Not one. So where are the experts coming from? Well, here's the article that I read early Saturday morning. It said, quote, if we don't control this, we go from a partial meltdown of the core to a full meltdown, this will be a complete disaster. Wow, that sounds bad. When I read that, I saw Joe, and I said, where's Joe from? Oh, he's from Plowshares Fund. Plowshare. He's the president of Plowshares. Well, that's fantastic. I think of Isaiah when I think of Plowshares. Yeah. But who started and funds Plowshares? Yes, say it with me. Spooky dude, George Soros. George Soros. In the same article that's quoting the Plowshare guy, another expert talks about pumping the seawater into the plant. He said, quote, I would describe this measure as a Hail Mary pass. I thought, oh my gosh, Robert, that sounds bad. And Robert should know because he's from ISP, whatever that is. Wow. I got on the internet and looked. That's an organization that works on nuclear disarmament for the Institute for Policy Studies. Guess who? Guess who? Say it with me. Yeah. George Soros and the Tides Foundation. Ha. So early on Saturday morning, the radical left is already busy at work. Instead of trying to figure out how to help people, how to prioritize what's really going on, they're just making sure that this crisis just doesn't go to waste. So, talking a little bit about Japan, and I showed you just a minute ago how the left is already, don't let a crisis go to waste, jumping on the disaster of Japan as a chance to lobby against nuclear energy. I showed you here a minute ago. How many died because of 3 Mile Island? 0. How many died because of Chernobyl? This number was 4,000. That's eventual from radiation. That one comes from the UN, so you know you can trust that number. 4,000. That's a lot of people. Not happen. But that's a lot of people. Okay. Okay. My question to you is the bond market. If the dollar collapses, how many millions will starve to death? Let's say, will it be more or less than 4,000? If the dollar and the bond market collapses, more or less than 4,000. Let's look at this. They're jumping on the fact they want no nukes. They want no coal. They want no oil. Wow, that leaves us with wind and cow farts. Oh, the sun. Okay, good. We have that. If we could just make cow farts less damaging to the ozone and turn it into fuel for our cars, man, we are all going to be set. Maybe Obama can mandate some new cow fart cafe standards. All cars have to be 96% cow farts by 2020. That's about how ridiculous the energy policy is in this country. But not only are opportunists going to take advantage of the crisis in Japan, they are going to use this event and take advantage of Japan itself while they are down. Do you remember the Fabian window? The Fabian window here. Remember what they're doing. These are the Fabian socialists. And this is a very famous window. We've talked about it. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing. The earth is on fire, but they are the ones heating it. Earth is on fire, and they are beating it and hammering it to remold it nearer to the heart's desire. Well, I got news for you, gang. The earth has heated up, and it's being remolded. Has anybody noticed that China, who just a few weeks ago were openly hostile to the Japanese, they had, I mean, you just don't do this in China, they had protests about the Japanese in China, and suddenly they're not only extending the gracious arm, which, okay, that's good. Loving heart of Mao has suddenly burst forth. Okay, cool. I can understand search and rescue teams and financial aid, but now they're going a step further. Now it's almost a propaganda campaign, it seems, coming from China, inside of China, saying, what can we learn from the Japanese and the way they're handling this crisis? Now, if I didn't think that communists were evil, I might think that's natural and normal. But I remember that it's Red China. And China and Japan are always at each other's throat. Recently, including a controversial helicopter flyover of a destroyer of a ship, and an arrest of a trawler captain near the islands that both are claiming. I have a hard time, that whole Taiwan thing. Really, now we're buddies. They're right about one thing, however, and I think we, honestly, can look at it without any government propaganda or no agenda. We can talk about how much there is to learn from the Japanese and how they're handling this crisis. And ask ourselves this: if, God forbid, a crisis, the Today Show, I learned today that there nuclear power plants in California and there's earthquakes there? What? Wow. Should we prepare? Question is, will we handle things the same way? We always have, historically. But look at the Japanese. The people are politely and calmly and patiently standing in line to get aids and supplies. Supermarkets are cutting prices. Vending machine owners are giving out free drinks to people who are just working together. There's no looting. We talked about this in a meeting earlier this morning and then later this afternoon. No one on this staff can remember a crisis this big where there is no looting. So what are we learning about the human spirit? We've already seen how low it can be pulled down. We see people here fighting in Wendy's and Denny's and just tearing each other apart. We've seen the protests that are not peaceful protests in Wisconsin. Please. People going in and busting through the doors and trashing the Capitol building at the slightest hint of a civil rights violation. I was at church yesterday, and I heard a preacher. I went to a gospel church in Harbor Island in the Bahamas, and it was an amazing experience. I want to bring this guy in. He's the preacher there, and he was amazing. He's a former Rastafarian, and he was a drug smuggler, and he changed his life. But he prayed for the people of Japan and the people of America, and he prayed for a revival all around the world. And he said, Lord, you told us these things would come, and here they are. And your people are preparing, and your people are standing together. It's amazing to me, in a way it's tragic, that it takes awful things to happen for us to find the best in ourselves. I would ask you tonight to pray for the people of Japan, as you probably already are, but also pray for the guardians around their freedom. God is not neutral in these things. I think there are far too many people looking for a new world order that will never let a good crisis go to waste. May the better angels among us grow and vanquish the darkness that surrounds us. Stand in solidarity with the people of Japan. It would have been better to bring a little bit of Japan to Wisconsin instead of Cairo.